Better than that. Well, don't break it to me, you weirdo. The end of August already. I hope you've been making the most of your summer. I know I've been. I went to Shakespeare in the Park, Sidewalk Astronomy, a haunted tour of a local historical site. The past couple of years I've taken a summer research trip, but this year I've certainly made up for the lack by taking advantage of local events. I've had a blast. I hope you haven't gotten too attached to this scenery, because I'm moving! As of October, I'll have my own house to be shared with my lovely camera-shy cameraman. Our house has this gorgeous loft that I'll be turning into my office/library. I have a lot of books. For those waiting patiently to hear the results of my SPCA campaign in June, I got the numbers earlier this month. How to Fall for the Wrong Man sold 154 copies during release week. This is your periodic reminder that authors are not rich. This past week I donated directly to the shelter from which I adopted Edgar. I came this close to getting another dog. It's dangerous to let me near there unsupervised. Speaking of dogs, Emma fans will be happy to get their hands on another Lady Catherine book. Murder at the Ice Ball, Book 3 in the Lady Catherine Regency Mysteries series, is now available for purchase. This is an Amazon exclusive for the time being, which means that it's up on Kindle Unlimited for those of you who subscribe. An audio version is expected, but I don't have a release date on that one yet. Leanne and I have started work on Book 4. The next book will take place over Christmas 1816, but I'm not sure with my wrists if I'll be able to finish it up by the holidays. I'll do my best, and if not this year, expect Book 4 in early 2019. I've been doing tons of research, most of it about Regency Christmas traditions, but I think I'll wait until December to share seasonal facts. In the meantime, allow me to tackle a Regency romance myth. Last year I had the privilege of visiting the UK for research purposes. One of my stops was the Dougal Gardens at Alnwick. Let's just say I was a little overwhelmed. I've read a lot of books where well-bred young ladies sneak off into the garden to steal a kiss from their paramour, but that got me thinking, exactly how private were ladies' gardens? The answer is a lot more private than I thought. The sheer magnitude of the gardens took my breath away. It covered more ground than the castle itself. As I walked through a maze of hedges, all I could hear was the roar of the water in my ears from the fountains. If they had so many fountains 200 years ago, it was a wonder anyone could hold a conversation. Yet, when I found myself in the covered walkway, everything seemed distant, like I was in my own little world. The sense of peace and solitude was nothing short of magical. And beyond that was this brick-walled garden with cultivated flowers in pots and squares with yet more hedges and walkways in between. So, could a lady truly find privacy in this maze of hedges taller than my 5'9" frame, a shadowed walkway covered in vines, or a walled garden with yet more tall hedges? I'd say so. Obviously, ladies had to be watched like a hawk, because there's so many places that you can find yourself alone with somebody where nobody would ever find out. Speaking of romance myths, what's this nonsense about happy ever after not being essential in books? It is in my books, and since I've reached a goal of reading 50 books so far this year, let me share some of my favorite romances of this year. Happy ever after guaranteed in these. Embarrassingly enough, I've read far more contemporary and paranormal romance this year than I have historical. Oops. But Vanessa Riley's The Bittersweet Bride won me over with her widow heroine and the gorgeous way she brings the era to life. Actually, I think The Bittersweet Bride started a trend because two others on my favorites list also mirror my past with dead partners. Recently, I've stopped shying away from heroines who survived domestic abuse, which I take as a sign of healing on my part. My two paranormal favorites, which I found through my library in audiobook after I lost the ability to use my wrists, are Sex and the Single Vampire by Katie McAllister and Desperately Seeking Shapeshifter by Jessica Sims. They're just as fun as they sound. These books handle the heroine's pasts with heat and humor. I'm very glad to have my local library this year, let me tell you. Reading all this fantastic paranormal romance is making me wish my wrists would heal faster so I can reread The Way You Bite by Zoe Forward. Another recommend, even if I haven't read it recently. In February, I devoured The Kingmaker Chronicles by Amanda Boucher. The Greek myth-inspired secondary fantasy world caught my attention, but it was the chemistry, the action, the laugh-out-loud humor that has made me a fan for life. Note that you'll need to read all 3 books for the happy ever after, though the first 2 end with a happy for now. For a married couple in their late 30s and 40s with children, I recommend The Far-Sweeping Raven Duology by Patricia Briggs. Another I read in audio, and I loved the family dynamics in this high fantasy story. The romance in these are in subplots between the married couple as well as another for their eldest son. Although the romance is not the focus here, that kiss between Jess and Hanea gave me more goosebumps than any other book in recent memory. Happy ever after for both couples by the end of the second book. And now contemporary. It is so hard to narrow down on only a few recommendations, as I've read a lot of good books this year. My favorites have to be A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. Fun and funny, and I loved the STEM heroine so much. Leaving Everest by Megan Westfield is a real friends to lovers treat. I adored it and loved learning more about mountaineering at the same time. Kiss of the Irish by Lauren Hawkeye was such a quick, hot, satisfying read that it spurred a series of other quick fixes that couldn't quite compare. And speaking of quick reads, I've read it before, but Dynama by Ruth Diaz curbed my recent craving for superheroes after watching The New Incredibles. I think, as my wrists are slowly healing enough for me to try reading by hand again, I'll be turning to more novellas in the near future. What can I say? They're the perfect length to read cover to cover guilt-free, and, with luck, I won't worsen my wrists at the same time. I'd better stop rambling about books while I can. I'm sure these recommendations have given you more than enough food for thought, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. Happy reading! I hope you find your next favorite happy ever after soon. Until next month.